Welcome back to the channel. I am Daniel Thompson, former HIT enthusiast, Super Slow Exercise Guild Master Certified Trainer, and I'm going to use my sunglasses this time because it's bright. It's really bright. Okay, I'm going to try to sit down. Um, I am. This channel is about. This is horrible. This channel is about experiences. Specifically with exercise, specifically with fitness, and even more narrow with HIT, high intensity training. This is not about conclusions. This is not about opinions. We hopefully maybe express some conclusions and opinions based on those experiences, but more about the experiences. And I hope to hear and maybe interview other people about their experiences. Um, I'm going to say this up front. One of the things I would like to interview people, I would like to hear from people who worked at Nautilus during the studio days when they had the TV studio going, what that was like. I'm really curious. I've only known about it, but I'm really curious how it was, what it was like there, what it was like working with Arthur as a creative direction, with creative direction. I'm really curious. So there's that. I want to start this episode off with an apology. Let me adjust the white balance here. Specifically, Ken Hutchins, I owe you an apology. For some reason, I have no idea why during all this time I broke contact. I have no good reason, no excuse, I don't know why. I'm not even gonna try to come up with a reason. I regret that. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know why I did it, but I do regret it. I'm really glad to be back in contact with you again now. Really glad. And I'm really appreciative of Drew Bay for facilitating that. But glad to be back in contact with Drew also. So you have my apology, Ken. And thank you for speaking with me. Thanks. So now this episode is kind of where I broke from HIT philosophy. I don't want to say I broke from super slow philosophy, but in many ways did. Um, and what caused that. Now, let me start this off by saying what caused me to break away was not things that didn't happen, but things that did happen. And I'll go into that. Um, let's back up a little bit. Most people when they're doing HIT, when they're trying high intensity routines, you're always tweaking. You're always trying to tweak and make it better. I don't like using analogies, but the approach with high intensity training, when you're adjusting routines, instead of scientific, it seems to be more like troubleshooting. Kind of almost we're almost following like a flow chart of problem solving or engineering, and less about science. Not that that's bad. It's perfectly reasonable and perfectly necessary to follow that kind of troubleshooting, problem solving, and moving up. It's a different direction though. Important. So, for example, we tried to find ways to tweak the repetition, the set, the exercise, position, the machine itself, things within the machine, the cams, the sprockets, the bearings, the bushings, the cables, chains. We sought to improve the machine. Then we sought to improve sequences. The arm sequence, multi-bicep chin, multi-tricep dips, pre-exhaust, pull over, pull down. Machines were made for this. There was always like tweaking. Let's make this sequence or this repetition or a little better. So there was always this problem of why did we need to tweak this? Why did we need these specific changes or adjustments to the normal sequence? Now, the normal sequence of um, high intensity training is to follow. I'm going to go back to the high intensity and Nautilus days before 1990. Most people were doing anywhere from 8 to 12 exercises, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 if they did minor things like neck and forearms, things like that. But most people, 15 to 20, or I'm sorry, 8 to 12 exercises, upper body first, then lower body first, then upper body, full body routines, going from largest muscles to smallest muscles. This was kind of the overall direction you took it in. And this was fairly productive, fairly efficient, fairly necessary for a practical training. Nautilus and high intensity kind of evolved from bodybuilding, not from sports so much. And there are a lot of people who can either verify or correct me on that, but and I'll go into my impression and opinion about Arthur and Nautilus and MedX. Not bad, just a viewpoint. I think Edgar's book really kind of showed a lot more behind the scenes of that. I'm going to reread it again. Thanks, Edgar, for writing that, by the way. I really appreciate it. And Edgar, I saw you once at MedX one time. I never got to actually meet you. I wish I could have met you and talked with you. I hope maybe I can do that someday. I'd like to hear some things about the behind the scenes at MedX specifically. Not about Arthur so much, but mostly how that worked, behind the scenes. One of the things that was really difficult was trying to become more muscular, for one thing. Just that was our entire focus, was just becoming muscular. And I'm gonna say to become muscular. I'm not gonna say to get big, because there are many ways to get big, but to become muscular. My experience, let me back up. Most of my life, most of my competitive gymnastics career, I was 139 pounds. I'm 5'7". I have it hovers between 29 and 32-inch waist, usually 31, 30, somewhere around there. I've never been over fat in my life. My waist has never gone up to 34. And I use my pants to measure that. I know that pants have gotten bigger now, but occasionally we'll use tape. But and I'm going to do a section on body fat, food, things like that. I'll give you a heads up. I have no idea why when I've been able to stay lean. I could make up, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Maybe, I don't know. I've stayed lean my whole life. Again, 5'7", 30-inch waist. Those are the conditions at which my body exists. And the weight at which I am most comfortable is it's a range between 148 and 152. I am most functional, most capable, I can do a variety of activities. I go up over that, I start feeling heavy. Even if I'm strong, even if I'm muscular, I go up over a certain weight, I feel heavy. I'll go into this again, detail later. So my best weight, when I was training high intensity Nautilus, around that time, untrained being a month or two, my body weight would kind of settle around 152, 155. That's my trained weight. My exercised weight was around 162. The most I ever got, the strongest I ever got using HIT principles, I got to stand up again, sorry. Using HIT principles, using all that was 168. And if I remember correctly, my waist was probably at the time a little bigger than it should have been, but 168. I don't remember my arm size, but I think at 168 it was 15, maybe close to 15 or around there. I never really got above that. It's frustrating, always trying to do, and people doing HIT kind of, I think some of you are probably already nodding your head. Yeah, always trying to tweak, always trying to come up with something, try something different that still within those HIT parameters, still within HIT guidelines, still within Nautilus guidelines. You always were trying this routine, that routine, the perfect rep, the perfect sequence, the perfect exercise, the perfect repetition, everything. You were always trying to tweak all the bits of it. I came to think all of these things we were trying to tweak had some sort of hierarchical structure or some sort of maybe troubleshooting structure, flow chart that prevented, or all of these reasons were odds or steps that are going to prevent you from achieving thorough inroad, from achieving a deep fatigue of the muscle, a true deep fatigue. Many of us trained hard, really hard. I'm going to go, I'm going to do an episode on my experience at GHFC, at Gainesville Health and Fitness. And Joe, it's going to be all good, don't worry. But one of the things we tried there was something called Proprioceptive Neuromuscular Facilitation. And I had a book on this, and it was about how to spot. I don't know how Ken feels about spotting now. I had an idea. I didn't like the idea of touching people at all, and I agree. I completely agree now. But back then, this was circa 88. I used it all the way up until the last days of training occasionally. But there was a about a year in Gainesville when I would use this and show it to trainers on the main floor and in personal training. And I used a technique called, like I said, neuromuscular facilitation. There was a book on this. I lost the book many years ago, but it was about this. And the wind is blowing and my iPad might fall. If I fall, anyway, that's what's happened. I've got my iPad propped up on something I think you can see. Yeah, you can see. No, that's the chair. Never mind. So let me give you an example of how neuromuscular facilitation works. And the easiest one to do this on is leg extension. And some of you probably do it. Some of you have probably seen me do it. Some of you probably came up with it. I did not come up with this technique. I may have adapted and refined a few parts of it for my own use, but no, I did not. This is not mine. This is not original. So the idea is to do something to increase sensitivity or excite the neural pathway through the limb being exercised. In the book, Neuromuscular Facilitation, Proprioceptive, whatever it was, they actually talked about touching the muscle, touching the limb. For example, if you were doing bicep curl, I'm demonstrating, but you don't have to see. I'll talk through it. They would have you touch 2 to 3 fingers on the bicep to kind of increase awareness. Is not your fingers, but the trainer's fingers, to increase awareness through the range of motion. So I tried that for a couple of times, and it was I was not impressed. I did not as far as applying that to exercise, to high intensity training, it was not really effective. What I did try was something a little different, and I don't know if I can demonstrate. Anyway, you're on leg extension. Doesn't matter if you're doing normal speed, fast speed, whatever. You're approaching momentary muscular failure. At the moment, or what I call at the threshold event, where you can't get it to go. I forget the different terms of all the stages of volitional fatigue, threshold event, muscle. I forget. Anyway, I've confused all those. You can't move the weight anymore. I would come down and gently squeeze the big toes. Not hard, but enough that you could feel it. And the weight would start to rise. I'm not spotting. I'm not doing anything to help. And I would only use 2 fingers. That would make sure I could not spot. Somebody's got 150 pounds on a leg extension weight stack. I can't lift that with 2 fingers. So squeeze, another full rep, sometimes 2. Consistently. On some people, on chest press, and how I did chest press, I can, if people are interested, I can go into detail on this. I don't think this technique would be acceptable on an open floor system in today's society. You'd probably get slapped, hit, sued, and arrested. And yeah, I don't think it could be used. It might be able to be used in a personal training, exercise studio setting, but I don't think it's necessary anymore. But it does work. On bicep curl, for instance, I used a technique where I would catch the skin here between fingers or knuckles and use the skin to pull to get 2 more repetitions many times after the person believed they had achieved momentary muscular failure. 2 more. So metabolic work is still fully capable after perceived momentary muscular failure. I came to, at the time, and I'm gonna use the word speculate. I'm not gonna use the word believe. I'm not gonna use the word my opinion, conclusion, because I don't have any. I don't have any. I came to speculate that achieving momentary muscular failure was almost impossible by yourself. It could occasionally happen, but it was so rare it was not really entirely possible. You have to be, okay, again, experience. You have to be in a very controlled setting, very mentally focused, very, very good instructor. Someone who knows what they're doing. And what I mean knows what they're doing means knows when to not talk, knows when to not spot, knows when to not help. It is more important to do those things than to not, or than to help, than to do things. So there's that. And you have a lot of people who want to help too much. That's a hard thing to break. So there's these things about momentary muscular failure and the tweaking of exercise and everything being difficult. That was kind of the start of my questioning of our philosophy. Not denying, but questioning. After that time, around that time, towards the end of my hit career, I was trying to understand deeper and deeper, how can we make thorough inroad, how can we make momentary muscular failure workable, achievable, usable. Ken went to the statics, super static side. I honestly have not read much about it. I intend to someday. I don't think I will use it much in my own training just because of limited stuff. I'll use some of the neck stuff, and saw Drew's demonstration about squats. I'll probably definitely use some of that on this thing when I'm traveling. Yeah, I'll do that. When we're trying to tweak the routines, it's fun. It's an adventure. I'm going to go back to the engineering parallel this time. You're trying a new doohickey, a new gadget, you get a new iPhone. You found this new function on the iPhone. Oh wow, I can use Siri to tell myself reminders. Oh yeah, same thing. Basically, we're finding new features of HIT. I really don't like using analogies, but sometimes I have to. When I can't explain myself well directly, I'm going to resort to analogies, and please don't take them straight out because they're just analogies. They are not a direct comparison. But we began discovering or exploring features of HIT, not the actual HIT, not the actual training, not the actual repetition. That's fine, that's good, that's necessary. Just like with any device, with any concept, you want to explore. You have to explore. That's what led to super static, super slow, Nautilus, everything. Going to take a break there because it's getting warm, and I'll come and finish.